All right, welcome back to Integrative Psychonautics. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about the connection between repressed positive emotions and psychedelics and how the two connect. So if you've ever wondered about this topic or want to know more about it, I would encourage you to watch on. There's going to be some interesting stuff in here. And just really quick for anyone who might be new to the channel here and has never seen me before, I just want to say, first of all, a warm welcome and hello to you. My name is Dave. I'm a coach. I'm a hypnotherapist. I work in the psychedelic space here, mostly with clients around stuff like preparation work, integration work, setting up for a journey, and just generally doing personal transformation work in between journeys, that kind of a thing. And I have a long history as a psychonaut myself, a lot of experience. And so that's kind of what we talk about on this channel, is this intersection between personal development, self-healing, personal transformation work, and psychedelics and how they're related and connected. So if that's your bag, if you're interested in this kind of a thing, you're in the right place. Please consider liking, subscribing, or just watching the rest of the video to see if it's your kind of content. Okay, enough said. Let's go ahead and get into the topic here. Okay, so psychedelics and repressed positive emotion. What's the connection there? Well, there's a few things I want to talk about in terms of this, and I don't really have this planned out, so I'm going to just kind of riff here and kind of unpack this as we go. But let me give you the reason why I'm bringing this up in the first place. So obviously right now in the psychedelic space, there are a lot of people who are kind of new to psychedelics, who have just been coming on board with taking them over the last couple of years, especially since the pandemic, and also especially just in general with the kind of rising of the news of all the science that's been coming out over the last 10 years and kind of the push towards legalization for MDMA in 2023. We have a lot of new people who are in the psychedelic space exploring it for the first time or curious about exploring it. And a very common thing I hear a lot, especially as a hypnotherapist, is people's fear about the unconscious mind. People's fear about the unknown inside our own psyche. People's fear about going into this intensely dark, painful, overwhelming, as if the moment they kind of look underneath the hood of their own psyche, it's all going to be bad and terrifying and overwhelming. And this really adds, I think, a significant amount of kind of anxiety before a journey, especially for people who are new, and just a lot of stress around taking psychedelics. It kind of casts them in this light as if going into your own psyche and exploring your own mind and your own body and your own kind of system intelligence is somehow inherently going to be painful, sad, overwhelming, too much, frightening, terrifying, or something you're going to get stuck with. And in my own experience, having gone deep with psychedelics since the 90s, and in terms of also just exploring with hypnosis and studying all the different therapeutic techniques I've studied, spiritual practices I've played with, I personally feel that this couldn't be further from the truth. That when you start to unpack what's inside of you, there is so much more to you than simply sadness, fear, and pain. But I want to keep it real with you. I want to be honest with you. Yes, when you start to explore your own psyche, it can come up. There may be unprocessed, negative emotion, fear, sadness that needs to be dealt with. There may be traumas that are there that you don't remember, that you wouldn't think were traumas, that need to be tended to and worked with and healed. Totally possible. So I don't want to misrepresent the territory to you. Quite the contrary, I actually want to more accurately and clearly represent the territory to you and remind you that inside of you, there is not only these dark corners of pain and sadness and fear and incomplete experiences that need to be addressed and healed and worked with, there's also this massive abundance of creativity, intelligence, beauty, wisdom, insight, humor, pleasure, joy, etc. There's everything you've ever experienced and ever known about yourself, including all your wonderful qualities from when you were younger, are still there inside of you as well. So the whole reason I say this is that in this video, obviously, as we're talking about unpacking, repressed joy, this is one of the common experiences that people start to come up with and start to encounter. So one example, I'm just kind of thinking on my feet here. How do I want to talk about this and organize this? So one example that a lot of people have is that they'll take psychedelics and all of a sudden they will get the giggles, right? They'll just suddenly, there'll be this feeling of levity and joy and this kind of bubbling up of positive emotion and silliness and maybe kind of like a childlike playfulness and life force kind of emerging, or a sense of just overwhelmingly joy or gratitude or bliss and sweetness and feeling deep well-being or deep emotional contentment. These are all very, very common. These happen all the time, especially for a lot of people. It can happen either early on or shortly after maybe an initial period of some challenging trips. And then maybe, 4, 5, 6 journeys in, all of a sudden you start having these experiences of just profound joy that seems to come out of nowhere, that's just bubbling up through you, wanting to be expressed. I see this a lot, and it turns into wanting to move, there's like a lot of life force and a lot of playfulness and energy that comes with it, really kind of almost like suppressed childhood energy, positive childhood energy, wanting to just run and giggle and do cartwheels and, spin around and lay on the ground and stare at the sky and the clouds or the stars, or wanting to paint or draw or sculpt or do something with all of this curiosity and fascination and enjoyment of being alive. And I think, this is really something to consider, that as we grow up in our culture and we learn how to become adults that can handle responsibility, that can shoulder tasks and be competent and be present and be successful in a career and, have all kinds of complex different ways of relating to, people in our lives and friends and family and the world and this and that and, building a life and all of that. I think one thing that happens along the way is that we implicitly get messages that we need to set aside our joy, that we need to set aside and kind of stop paying attention to the pleasure of being embodied, to the pleasure of feeling alive, to the pleasure of simple things like breathing fresh air, or of looking at something really closely and marveling at its strangeness or its beauty. These kinds of experiences that are very common when we're young, we kind of get these implicit learnings along the way into adulthood to put all that behind us, put all that aside. And really what we're doing when we do that, you can't put it aside because it's part of being alive. Like if we're really present with our embodied experience, joy and ecstasy and humor and playfulness come with that very, very naturally, very inherently. And so it really is like a repressed joy. And so when you're taking a psychedelic, it's just as possible for you, as it might be to have, hit a current of grief or sadness or, fear or worry about the future or whatever, and have that really become alive and vivid for you. It's just as likely, if not perhaps more likely, because you've got something that's stimulating your serotonin system and helping you to feel more of that satiated well-being serotonin feeling. It's just as possible that you're going to have like some of this joy bubble up, or some of this appreciation of life, or this appreciation of, the bizarreness of being alive, or the beauty or the exquisiteness of, some piece of music or piece of art, or the wonderfulness of a certain person or people in your life, or certain experience that you've had. This is all very, very common. And so from my perspective, and I'm kind of rambling here, but again, like I said, I'm kind of just off the cuff with this one. From my perspective, as a hypnotherapist, this is all part of the unconscious mind, right? So from a hypnotherapist kind of basic point of view, if we're to simplify it, the unconscious mind is everything that we're not aware of in our experience in a given moment. So while I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm aware of my words, I'm aware of looking at the camera, I'm aware of perhaps the lighting on my face, the microphone next to me here. There's all kinds of other things in my experience that my body and my unconscious mind and my nervous system is receiving that I'm not immediately paying attention to. And all of that is technically in your unconscious, right? And so this includes all the memories that you never think about anymore, all the things you ever experienced that you kind of just never processed or just kind of faded in the background of your life experience. This includes everything else outside of the kind of narrow set of things that you're currently focused on, right? And so, of course, inside of that huge scope of things in your unconscious, there's going to be a lot there that's beautiful, that's joyful, that's sweet, that's pleasurable, that's fun, that's funny, right? And I would argue that in order to be a healthy, balanced human being, it's it's not only valid, it's not only natural, it's fucking important to be in touch with those things, to regularly touch base with those feelings and those points of view and those perceptions and that way of being embodied as well as an ecstatic, joyful, alive, vibrant human being. That is part of your birthright. And while we're conditioned into kind of suppressing that and pretending like that fades out, the real truth is it never does. And so, yes, I guess what I'm saying here, in case you're wondering, kind of getting there the roundabout way, yes, it's possible to repress your positive emotions. Yes, it's possible that can be part of what is going on in like a depression situation or an anxiety situation. And it's possible that that can cause a lot of the imbalances in our life, including health imbalances. And I think part of this work is embracing and again, if psychedelics are tools of awakening and attention, generally speaking, and tools that help us not to tune in and become more aware and more finely tuned and to not avoid our own experience anymore. In other words, they're not drugs of numbing out, of pure escapism. I mean, you can be escapist with psychedelics, let's be honest, but they're not drugs of pure escapism the way, certain other drugs are. Since there's this trend and this kind of tendency of psychedelics towards acknowledgement, becoming more in touch, becoming more sensitive, becoming more attuned, more aware of these subtle aspects of our experience, we want to be taking that information and integrating that back into ourselves and really embodying. I think at very least as a metric, if you don't want to shoot for an ecstatic lived experience, I think the thing to shoot for is wholeness and balance. And I think we get to wholeness and balance by including more of our positive experience, because most people, if you think about it, are really good at only including their negative experiences, only focusing on the problems, only focusing on their worries, only focusing on their challenges. And generally, we get really good at being narrow at being practiced only at negative emotional states, and become very weak at being practiced to our positive emotional states. And so this is another way of thinking about psychedelic use, is to unpack your positive emotions, to stop repressing this kind of drive towards joy, towards ecstasy, towards vibrant aliveness. There's one other thing I want to say about this. I didn't think I was going to talk about this, but it feels appropriate to kind of tag in here, and I'll wrap the video here. I do think it's possible also for people to have, let's say, wounds around joy or feeling alive or feeling blissful and ecstatic, and to kind of like really have issues where we're afraid, where we become kind of rigid and stuck and kind of have a hang up about allowing ourselves to relax and be open and be playful and be expressive and enjoy our embodied lived experience. And I think this is another thing you can look for around kind of this topic of, positive emotional repression. If you're using psychedelics, is to look at, do I have any fears? Do I have any hangups? Am I holding down and suppressing my positive emotions because I'm afraid to let myself go there? And what is that fear? Am I afraid of being, does it make me feel vulnerable? Does it make me feel out of control? Does it make me feel ashamed? Does it make me feel, like I won't know how to turn it off? And really start to tune in to what fear might be part of the kind of holding, suppressing structure that's getting in the way of your flow of accessing a regular connection to your positive emotions. Because not only do we have, I think, often kind of a backlog of repressed emotions, but even in our current lived experience, no matter what your age is, there's probably things in your life experience that are beautiful, that are exciting, that fill you with pleasure or joy or gratitude or peace or bliss, that you might also be kind of like suppressing down because it just doesn't seem appropriate, or you don't have a healthy outlet for it or whatnot. So I just kind of wanted to talk about this and start to unpack this notion, start to plant this seed in your awareness that yes, it is possible to suppress positive emotions. Yes, psychedelics can absolutely put you in touch with that. Yes, sometimes that's what's happening when we just get these waves of laughter or joy or bliss, or kind of feel regressed back into childhood wonder. And yes, this can be a potent source of healing. And I think the bigger picture there is really about integrating that back into your personality structure, back into your way of living, your way of being embodied as a person, so that you are allowing your joy, your love, your pleasure, your well-being to flow through you. So it's not stagnating inside of you, it's moving beyond you out into the world around you. So I think I'm going to leave it there for now. So if this resonates, if this is interesting, please do me a favor, because I need to know what topics hit home for you guys and what topics don't, what's interesting, maybe challenging, maybe like doesn't hit home at all, or is like, damn, like you really hit on something I've been needing to hear. Drop me a comment down below. Let me know if this hits home for you or not. And I will either do more of these videos or I won't. So with that being said, thanks for watching. And before we go here, I just want to say really quick, it's going to be really cold this week and holidays are this weekend. So happy holidays to anyone celebrating this week or, over the weekend, and stay warm. Take care. I'll talk to you guys soon.